Welcome to Nightmare Fuel Stories, the signal. I've spent 18 years maintaining the Blackrock radio tower, and in that time I've grown accustomed to isolation. Perched on the edge of Crater Lake in Oregon, the tower stands as a solitary sentinel against the vast wilderness. Most people would find the solitude maddening, but for me, it's been a sanctuary. Or at least it was until 3 weeks ago when the tower started broadcasting again. The thing is, Blackrock Tower was officially decommissioned in 2019. I was kept on as a caretaker, a glorified watchman really, tasked with basic maintenance and ensuring the government's equipment didn't fall into disrepair or become vandalized. The actual broadcasting equipment was supposed to have been disabled, the power lines to the transmitter severed. Yet somehow it had come alive again, humming with an energy that made the hair on my arms stand on end. I first noticed it during a routine check of the facility. The familiar ambient sounds of the tower, the creaking metal in the wind, the occasional drip from the ceiling when it rained, were accompanied by something new. A low, persistent hum emanating from the broadcasting room. When I unlocked the heavy metal door, I was greeted by the sight of blinking lights on the control panel, a sight I hadn't seen in years. "Impossible," I muttered, approaching the equipment cautiously. The main transmitter showed active status, its power indicator glowing a steady green. I checked the connections, finding to my shock that the severed cables had somehow been restored, though not in any conventional way. The copper wires seemed to have grown together like vines intertwining, forming new connections where there should have been none. I immediately called my supervisor, Marcus Heller, at the Department of Communications. "Blackrock's been offline for years, Jensen," he said after I explained what I'd found. "You must be seeing things." "I know what I'm seeing, Marcus. The equipment is active. It's broadcasting something." "That's impossible." "The transmitter was gutted. There's nothing left to broadcast with." "Well, something's broadcasting," I insisted. "Can you check if there's a signal being picked up anywhere on Blackrock's frequency?" There was a long pause, followed by the sound of typing. "Nothing on our end," he finally said, "but I'll send a tech team out next week to check it out." Next week, of course. Blackrock wasn't exactly a priority these days. "Fine," I said, trying to hide my frustration. "I'll keep an eye on things until then." After hanging up, I returned to the broadcasting room and tried to shut down the equipment manually. Nothing happened. The power switch seemed to be stuck in place, as if it had been welded. The emergency cutoff didn't respond either. Whatever was powering the system wasn't coming from any source I could control. That night, curiosity got the better of me. I brought my old radio from my living quarters to the broadcasting room and tuned it to Blackrock's frequency. Static greeted me at first, a soft, consistent hiss that almost lulled me into thinking I had indeed imagined the whole thing. But then, just as I was about to give up, the static cleared for a moment and I heard it, a voice, distant and distorted, speaking words I couldn't quite make out. I adjusted the tuning, trying to clear up the signal. The voice came through a bit clearer but still fragmented, ... coming through. "Anyone, please, help us." A chill ran down my spine. The voice sounded desperate, pleading. "Hello," I spoke into the air, knowing full well that my radio was a receiver, not a transmitter. "Can you hear me?" The static returned, drowning out any response that might have come. I spent the next hour trying different positions in the room, adjusting the antenna, anything to clear up the signal, but it remained elusive, fragments of words, desperate pleas, then nothing but static. Sleep eluded me that night. The voice from the radio played over and over in my mind. Who was trying to reach out, and how were they broadcasting through equipment that should have been dead for years? The next morning, I decided to do a more thorough investigation of the tower. Blackrock stands 300 feet tall, with various levels housing different equipment. The broadcasting room is on the 3rd level, with maintenance platforms at regular intervals all the way to the top. I climbed the internal ladder, checking each level for any signs of tampering or unusual activity. Everything seemed normal until I reached the very top platform, just below the antenna array. There, clinging to the metal structure, was something that defied explanation. It looked like some kind of organic growth, dark, almost black, with a texture that reminded me of wet leather. It had spread across the metal like a fungus, covering about 3 square feet of the platform and part of the antenna base. I approached it cautiously, flashlight in hand. The growth seemed to pulse slightly, though I couldn't tell if it was a trick of the light or an actual movement. When I got within a few feet, I felt a strange sensation, a sort of pressure in my head, like the feeling you get when descending too quickly in an airplane. Against my better judgment, I reached out to touch it. The moment my fingers made contact, a jolt of electricity shot up my arm, causing me to stumble backward. The growth hadn't felt like anything I could describe, neither solid nor liquid, but something in between, with a warmth that suggested life. More disturbing was what happened next. As I nursed my tingling hand, I heard the radio I'd left in the broadcasting room crackle to life, the sound carrying up the tower's hollow center. "Jensen, help us, they're coming." My name. It had said my name. I scrambled down the ladder, heart pounding, and burst into the broadcasting room. The radio sat where I'd left it, now silent, but the control panel's lights were blinking more rapidly, as if excited by my presence. "Who are you?" I demanded, feeling foolish for speaking to an empty room. "How do you know my name?" The radio crackled again. "We, same, you, before." The words made no sense, but the voice, there was something hauntingly familiar about it. It reminded me of someone, though I couldn't place who. I spent the rest of the day trying to establish clearer communication, but the voice remained fragmented, the messages cryptic. By evening, exhaustion had taken its toll, and I retreated to my living quarters, a small apartment attached to the base of the tower. Sleep came fitfully, haunted by dreams of voices calling my name from great distances. I woke several times, convinced I'd heard someone in my room, only to find myself alone. The third day brought a new development. The organic growth I'd discovered had spread, now covering most of the top platform and creeping down the internal structure of the tower. It seemed to be following the path of the electrical wiring, as if feeding on the energy flowing through the tower. More alarming was what I found in the broadcasting room. The control panel had changed overnight. New switches and dials had appeared, their design unlike anything I'd seen before, organic almost, with curves and textures that looked grown rather than manufactured. And the radio was speaking more clearly now. "Jensen," it said when I entered the room, the voice stronger than before. "You need to help us. The barrier is thinning. They're finding ways through." "Who is this?" I demanded. "How do you know me? You don't remember," the voice said, a note of sadness evident. "They took that from you too." "Took what? What are you talking about?" "Your memories of us, of what happened here." A chill ran through me. "Nothing happened here. I've been the caretaker for 18 years. Before that, it was just a radio tower." "No," the voice insisted. "Before that, it was a gateway, and you were its keeper." The conversation left me shaken. I tried calling Marcus again, but the phone lines were dead. My cell phone showed no signal, not unusual in this remote location, but troubling given the circumstances. That night I dreamed of the tower as it had been years ago, bustling with activity, filled with people in lab coats and military uniforms. In the dream I walked among them, not as an observer but as one of them, a scientist working on something called Project Threshold. The details slipped away as I woke, leaving me with nothing but a sense of unease and the lingering feeling that the dream wasn't entirely fiction. On the fourth day I made a discovery that changed everything. While examining the spreading growth in the tower, I noticed something embedded within it, a small, metallic object that glinted in the beam of my flashlight. Using a pair of tweezers from my toolkit, I carefully extracted it. It was a badge, an ID badge with my photo on it, but not my name. According to this badge, I was Dr. Thomas Jensen, lead researcher for something called the Quantum Communication Initiative. The date on the badge was 2001, 18 years ago. My hands trembled as I stared at it. The face was unmistakably mine, albeit younger, with shorter hair and no beard. But I had no memory of ever being a Dr. Jensen or working on any initiative. As far as I knew, I'd always been just Jensen, the caretaker. I returned to the broadcasting room, badge in hand, and approached the radio. "What is this?" I asked, holding the badge up as if the voice could see it. "Why does it have my face but a different name?" The radio crackled to life immediately. "Because that's who you were before they wiped your memory and placed you here as a guardian." "Guardian of what?" "The breach. The tier between worlds that we created, that you helped create." The words sent a shiver down my spine. "That's impossible. I'm just a caretaker. You're a containment protocol, Jensen, a human failsafe. They couldn't close the breach completely, so they left you here to monitor it, with just enough technical knowledge to maintain the tower but not enough to understand what it really is." "And what is it, exactly?" "A doorway. We were trying to establish communication with parallel realities, but something went wrong. Instead of just communication, we created a physical passage. Something came through, something that shouldn't have. Most of the research team was lost. The military shut everything down, classified it all, and left you here to watch for signs of activity." "If that's true," I said, struggling to process this information, "then who are you? How are you talking to me through this radio?" There was a pause, longer than any before. "Then, I'm you, Jensen, a version of you from another reality where the experiment continued. We've been trying to reach you for years to warn you." "Warn me about what?" "The things that came through in your reality, they're finding their way to others. The breach is expanding. And now they're coming back." As if to punctuate this warning, the tower shuddered, a deep vibration that I felt in my bones. The lights flickered, and for a moment I thought I saw something move in the corner of the room, a shadow that didn't correspond to any object. "What do?" I asked, fear evident in my voice. The original containment protocols are still in place, buried in the tower's systems. You need to reactivate them. There's a hidden room beneath the main floor. The entrance is behind the utility panel in the northeast corner. I found the panel exactly where the voice said it would be. Behind it was not the expected tangle of wires but a small keypad. Without thinking, my fingers typed in a sequence, 4-7-2-9-1. The wall beside the panel slid open, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. How had I known that code? Flashlight in hand, I made my way down the stairs. They led to a large, circular room filled with equipment far more sophisticated than anything in the tower above. At the center stood what looked like a containment chamber, a glass cylinder about 8 feet tall, surrounded by monitoring equipment. The glass was cracked in several places and the door hung open. Whatever had been contained here was long gone. The control console nearby was dark, but as I approached, it hummed to life, responding to my presence. Screens illuminated, displaying data I somehow understood despite its complexity. It showed the status of the breach, a tier in the fabric of reality located directly beneath the tower, extending down into the earth for an unknown distance. According to the readings, the breach had been stable for years but had become active again 3 weeks ago. Energy was flowing through it in both directions, and the integrity of the containment field was at 23% and falling. I knew what I had to do, the knowledge surfacing from somewhere deep within my mind. My fingers flew over the controls, initiating the emergency containment protocol. The system responded, power surging through the facility as dormant systems came online. For a moment, it seemed to be working. The breach stability readings improved, climbing to 40%, then 50%. But then a new alert appeared on the screen, foreign entity detected in containment area. I wasn't alone in the room. Slowly, I turned around. Standing on the other side of the containment chamber was myself, or something wearing my face. It looked exactly like me, down to the clothes I was wearing, but its posture was wrong, too stiff, too perfect. "Hello, Jensen," it said, its voice identical to mine, but with an undertone that made my skin crawl. "I've been waiting a long time to meet you." "What are you?" I managed to ask, my mouth dry with fear. "I'm the solution to a problem," it replied, taking a step toward me. "The problem of existence, of separation. In your reality, you call it individuality. Where I come from, we recognized it for what it truly is, an evolutionary mistake." It took another step forward. I backed up against the console. "Your kind sent us back," it continued. "Sealed the breach, but you didn't understand what we are. We don't exist as you do. We're not bound by the same physical laws." Part of me remained, growing, adapting, learning to manipulate this reality. The growth in the tower, I realized aloud. "That's you," it smiled, an expression that didn't reach its eyes. "Just a physical manifestation, a way to repair the technology I needed. The real me is something you couldn't comprehend. What do you want? To finish what we started. Your team opened the door thinking you'd find knowledge, and you did, the knowledge that your way of existence is flawed, inefficient. We offer unity, perfection." As it spoke, its form seemed to waver slightly, like heat rising from pavement. Behind it, I noticed movement, shadows detaching from the walls, taking vague humanoid shapes. More of them. "The others who disappeared during the experiment," I said, understanding dawning. "My colleagues." "You took them, we improved them," it corrected. "They're part of us now, and soon you will be too. Then we'll use this tower as it was meant to be used, not to communicate between realities, but to open the way permanently." I glanced at the console behind me. The containment protocol was still running, but it needed more time. I had to keep this thing talking. "If your way is so perfect," I challenged, "why do you need me? Why not just take over?" Its expression hardened. "Because the breach works both ways. Your consciousness, your specific consciousness, is the key. The one who opened the door must be the one to hold it open." That's when I understood the true horror of my situation. I hadn't been left here as a guardian, I'd been left as bait. The government knew these things would come back for me specifically, so they wiped my memory and placed me here, surrounded by monitoring equipment disguised as a simple radio tower. And now the trap had been sprung, but no one was coming to help. The shadow figures were moving closer, their forms becoming more defined. I could see faces now, distorted, wrong, but recognizable from photos I'd seen in the facility. "The missing researchers, you don't have to fight this, Jensen," my doppelganger said, its voice almost gentle. "The others resisted at first too, but once they joined us they understood. No more loneliness, no more fear. No more separation." As it spoke, one of the shadow figures reached out to me, its hand passing through my arm. The sensation was indescribable, cold but burning, like being submerged in ice water that somehow scorched. And with it came flashes of memory, a laboratory, colleagues, the excitement of discovery, then terror as something came through the breach we'd created. I remembered now, all of it. How we'd opened a doorway thinking we were reaching another Earth, only to contact something else entirely. how they came through, taking us one by one, absorbing us. How I'd managed to initiate the emergency protocols, sealing the breach but trapping myself with one of them. The military had arrived too late to save the others, but had found me barely alive, my mind broken by what I'd experienced. They hadn't wiped my memories as a cover-up, they'd done it as an act of mercy. The containment protocol was at 85% now, almost there, but the shadow figures were closing in, more hands reaching for me, each touch bringing pain and more fragments of memory. My doppelganger watched, its expression curious. You remember now, good, it will make the transition easier. There won't be any transition, I said, my hand finding the final control on the console behind me. You made one mistake, and what's that? You assumed I was left here as a passive guardian, but that's not it at all. I managed a smile of my own. I'm not just the lock. I'm the key. I pressed the button, initiating the final stage of the protocol. The room filled with a blinding light emanating from the containment chamber. The shadow figures shrieked, their forms dissolving in the radiance. My doppelganger's face contorted in rage and fear. What have you done? It demanded. Reverse the polarity of the breach, I explained, feeling a strange calm despite the pain now spreading through my body. Instead of closing it, I've inverted it. It's not pulling anymore, it's pushing. Everything that doesn't belong in this reality is being forced back, including, I knew, parts of myself. The memories that had returned were being torn away again, along with something more fundamental. I could feel it, a piece of my consciousness that had been touched by the other side. The light grew more intense, painful to look at. My doppelganger was coming apart, its form dissolving like the others, but it fought harder, clinging to its shape. This isn't over, Jensen, it hissed, its voice distorting. There are infinite realities, infinite breaches. We'll find another way through. Not here, I said firmly, not through me. The light reached its peak intensity, and with a sound like reality itself tearing, my doppelganger and the shadow figures vanished. The containment chamber imploded, collapsing in on itself, taking the breach with it. Then silence. The emergency lights came on, casting the room in a soft red glow. The console displayed a simple message: containment successful. Breach sealed. I stood there for a long time, trembling with exhaustion and the aftereffects of what I'd experienced. Parts of my memory were already fading, the specifics of the project, the faces of my colleagues. But not the important parts, not the warning. I made my way back up to the tower, each step painful. The organic growth was gone, leaving only clean metal behind. In the broadcasting room, the control panel had returned to its dormant state, all lights dark. The radio sat silent, but as I approached, it crackled to life one last time. Jensen, came the voice, my voice from another reality. Can you hear me? I hear you, I responded. The breach on your side is sealed, but there are others. We've detected multiple incursions across different realities. They're learning, adapting. This was just the beginning. What can I do? Stay vigilant. They'll try again, maybe not here, but somewhere. The tower will warn you, it's still connected to the network we established. If another breach forms, you'll know. And then what? Then you do what you were trained to do, what you were left there to do. You protect your reality as we try to protect ours. The radio went silent, and this time I knew it wouldn't speak again. At least not until the next breach. I walked outside, looking up at the tower silhouetted against the night sky. For 18 years, I thought I was just a caretaker, a glorified security guard watching over an abandoned facility. Now I understood my true purpose. I am the guardian of the threshold, the watcher at the breach, and I will be ready when they come again. As I stand here under the stars, I can't help but wonder how many other versions of me exist across the multiverse, each standing at their own tower, their own breach, fighting the same battle against the same enemy. And I wonder how many have already lost. The radio tower stands silent now, its transmission ceased, but I know better than to believe the silence will last. In the quantum foam of reality, where worlds touch and separate like bubbles in a cosmic sea, nothing stays sealed forever. So I wait and I watch and I listen for the hum that will tell me they've found another way through, because that's who I am, that's who I've always been, even when I didn't remember. Dr. Thomas Jensen, guardian of the threshold. The last line of defense against what waits on the other side. And the tower broadcasts its warning to anyone who might be listening: stay away from Blackrock. What looks like an abandoned radio tower is actually the scar of a wound in reality, a wound that never fully healed and someday will open again.